everyone, and welcome to the third episode of Season 2 of the Sheroes Project. My name is Nishka Iyer, and I am the Executive Director of the Sheroes Project. And today we are so excited to welcome Silvia Ahmed, VP of Engineering at Veritas Technologies. So welcome, Silvia.
Good morning, and very happy to be here.
Well, we're very happy to have you here. So how has 2021 treated you so far? How's your year going?
Well, for me, it actually has been a positive in many ways, but I tend to look at the positive side most of the time. Like everybody else, feeling a little bit of the isolation and not having that personal interaction with folks. But we're trying to make the best out of it.
That's great to hear. So, switching gears a little bit, what has your professional journey looked like this year? And also, just in general, how have you reached the position that you are at currently?
At the professional level, I actually have been in the industry for 35 plus years, so it's a long trajectory. In that time, I've had the opportunity to work for startups, medium size, which is 2,000 to 5,000 employee type of companies, as well as enterprises, which have over 100,000 employees in staff. I also have had the opportunity to work on every layer of the software stack, as well as hardware. And I've been very fortunate because not everybody gets this opportunity. I've worked at the operating level, operating system level, at the application level. I've had to actually work with hardware solutions. So, in terms of the technical breadth, I've been very lucky that I've been able to work on all these different things. I've also had an opportunity to work with technology that is first in the industry. So I worked on things like the first handwriting recognition software that went to the market, pen-based computing, wireless computing, just lots of firsts in the industry, both on the consumer side as well as in the infrastructure side of technology. So it's the breadth of products and technologies has been quite a bit. One other unique thing I believe is about my experience is I've actually held position in every function in engineering. I started off in technical support as my very first job, and I was very lucky. I joined a startup that actually built an operating system, and the gentleman who was the architect and founder of the company was my mentor there. And so started off there, but later on I moved into engineering as a QA engineer. Later on in my career, I actually went into management, and with that, I actually had the opportunity to manage technical writers, program managers, and eventually development teams. So I literally have touched every function in the organization, which actually, hopefully I can share with the ladies that are, and anyone that's listening to this. I think when you're in college, we don't get visibility to the variety of roles that it takes to actually produce a product. Within engineering, there's many and a very broad variety of skills that come together. So with that, that gives you a flavor of my background.
Yeah, no, that's a great start because it gives us a really big picture of what your journey has looked like. And I'm really excited that you're here. So I'm Malaika, and I'm the Director of Operations for Sheroes. And kind of moving on in this pathway of questions, throughout your journey, what has been the most memorable moment, would you say?
Memorable in a positive way is that I've been very fortunate to be part of, like I said, first in the market solutions. So that has brought a lot of, personal fulfillment professionally. I was involved with a product very early on in my career with the first handheld device. So now we take for granted all our mobile devices, but at that time, this was 1990, we were putting out a product that normally would have taken 2 to 3 years to get to market. We did it in 1 year. And we integrated the absolute latest technology into that solution. And so the achievement of having worked on something that was first in the market, but it also started, now in retrospect, it really actually had an impact in society, right? So that, you know, that feeling of having contributed to solutions at the beginning of more solutions to come, it's very, very memorable, and it's actually very fulfilling. Early on in my career, also, I worked on the first point of sale devices. So these are the devices that you use at your local store to pay with your credit card. The very first devices that came out, I actually worked on those, qualifying them and making sure that, you know, the applications were working correctly, et cetera, and saw them, you know, in use every day. I see them every day in my life, right? So the satisfaction of seeing something you worked in.
Yeah.
And of course, there's memorable things that are not so positive, and those are the failures. And the thing to remember about failures, and don't forget them, is what you learned from them. So I've had, you know, been involved with projects where it wasn't a happy ending. The product failed in the market, the company was significantly impacted. But you take those experiences and you take the time to say, what could I have done differently? What went wrong? And sometimes it's under your control. Sometimes there's nothing you could have done differently, but at least you understand what went wrong, and you make sure you use that learning in your next project.
Definitely. Similarly, you've been working in technology for a very long time. And what has been one of the highlights about working in the technical field?
Apart from the product related highlights, I think one of the things that gives me a lot of satisfaction is that as I gained experience, people actually helped me get to where I am. And now I'm hoping that I'm doing the same for others. As I became a manager, you know, beyond being a manager day to day, managing my immediate team, I really focused around what type of leader I wanted to be. And the type of leader I wanted to be was one that actually embraced change, supported people, and truly believed that the biggest asset and the most important asset in a company is the people that work there, and that we invest in those people. So that's one of the things that, you know, is very important to me. And then the other aspect of being in this industry is I've actually seen some progress, but not enough progress in terms of the number of women entering the field and the women that are in this field progressing into leadership roles. And so I made it my own personal goal to make sure that in different ways I'm contributing to improving those situations.
No, that's definitely a very important part of the conversation, is finding those role models, because I think that finding that mentor role model can be really helpful in the long run. So you have so much experience in the technical sector, but you've also gained a business degree. So how would you say that that degree has impacted the work that you do? And has it made you look at technical work with a different point of view?
Yeah. So actually, my degree, my bachelor's degree, is in psychology. Later on, I took computer science courses when I after I got my first job. I did a minor in cybernetic systems. And cybernetic systems is really they teach you how to look at problem solving from many multidisciplinary views. That was very foundational for me coming into high tech. The first role I had was in technical support. What are you doing in technical support? You are doing two things. You're trying to deal with a person that's very frustrated because they had a lot of issues with the product you just delivered. And you're trying to solve a technical problem too. And to be able to solve that problem quickly, you need to have those skills that allow you to have a framework to quickly do a root cause analysis of the problem so you can get to the solution. So even though I didn't have a computer science degree at the beginning, those two skills were very important for the first role that I actually took on. Because I was lucky enough to land in a job that was very technical with supporting an operating system, I saw the immediate need that I need to go back and I need to go take courses on operating system principles, compilers, etc. And I did. So I made it a point every quarter to take 1 or 2 classes. And so that sort of formed the technical foundation. And then I was able to move into the engineering organization with both the experience of having understood what the customers need, and also now with the technical foundation to be able to do testing of the products that are being developed. Later on, I've taken some more business-related courses, and that's important when you get into a leadership role, because you need to be looking at things from a very holistic perspective. It's not just about developing the code or testing the code. It's also in a management role, you need to understand the impact of financials. Say if I decide to buy equipment, am I buying it at the right time, and I'm going to make the full use of that equipment? And so that's where the business background comes in. You're also able to ask more questions when product management comes into engineering, asking for this or that feature. You want to understand how that feature actually is going to impact the bottom line of the company more or less than another feature that you're already working on. So that's where the business aspect comes in, understanding the full picture. And that way you're able to make better decisions for the business.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah. So we've talked a little bit about the highlights of your journey and your favorite parts, but what was an obstacle that you faced either early or later on in your career? And how were you able to overcome it? And if you weren't able to do so at the time, how did you work with it?
Yeah. Well, there's been many obstacles along the way. Early on, first, credibility. Not having a computer science degree, obviously, I was a little bit of a disadvantage coming into engineering. Secondly, being a woman. And early in my career, also, had some challenges where I was in a leadership role. I had to represent the organization, but I also entered some situations where even my own ethnic background kind of got in the way of the relationship that I was building in a particular situation. One of the things that I always work with is be sure I know what I'm talking about, make sure I've done my homework, build that credibility, build a relationship with the people that I'm working with so that I can actually get help when I need help, but also, push for what I think is the right thing with that credibility and with all of that homework that I've done in preparation going into a conversation, so that everything is focused around fixing the problem, all based on data and not on perception and assumptions that other people make about me as a person. So those are the things that I think about, and those are the things that I work through. In terms of challenges, I did have one particular situation where in the QA role that I was in, I actually had to recommend that we not ship the product. There were some serious issues that it was clear we would be struggling in the field, and it would end up in a very poor customer experience. Unfortunately, because the product was a hardware product, and I myself did not have enough experience at that point in time. I had plenty of people behind me that were working, and we provided the data. The product still was shipped, and it was a failure. And in retrospect, I think one thing that I would have done differently, and that's part of having more experience over time, is instead of presenting the information in a group setting, I should have probably most effectively gone to individuals within the organization that were the decision makers, gone through the data, given them the opportunity to ask more questions, going in depth why my concerns, why my team was recommending what they were recommending, and then come into that broader meeting where everybody's in the room to present the data. So some people were seeing that data for the first time, some people had not had time to really review it. So it wasn't an effective way of managing that communication. And so it was a big lesson learned for me.
Yeah, I really love that you talked about what you would do in retrospect, because that kind of leads into my next question. But I think that looking back and looking at maybe what you might have done differently is really helpful, not only to us, but also anybody who listens to the interview, because always looking back in retrospect is important. But also kind of moving towards the next question, do you remember a time when you felt out of place in a tech room? You had mentioned when we had gotten in touch that you were one of a few women in a room full of men. So did that ever make you feel discouraged so much so that you felt like leaving the tech sector?
Actually, that was not the thing that made me feel like leaving the tech sector. I kind of got used to being the only woman or one of two women in the room. I don't think I've ever been in a room more than three women in a room. That was not actually the reason for wanting to leave tech. The times when I wanted to leave tech was when I was making transitions, when I was going from an individual contributor into a manager, became a manager, and it was a tough transition. The demands were higher, and at times you doubt yourself, and you think maybe I've sort of reached my limit of what I can contribute. And when you doubt yourself like that, it's always good to have someone else that knows you personally, but also knows you professionally, because they're able to remind you of what you bring to the table. And I think as you get more experience and more mature in life, you don't need that as much. You know, you're more self-assured. You know what you achieved, right? You can look back and see, I did X, Y, Z successfully. But early in the career, it's good to have a mentor or a sponsor or someone that you trust professionally to remind you, because there will be self-doubts. You know, there will be many challenges along the way, and you will question yourself. And so it's always good to have someone else remind you that, you know, you bring something unique, because we all do bring something unique to the table. And so that is very helpful. For me, there were individuals who reminded me, Silvia, you have a unique knack for X, and that's what makes things work. But also my own team kept reminding me that, you know, I was a good manager, you know, I was their mentor, they were counting on me. And so then you basically sort of, you know, you're having that low moment, you sort of bootstrap yourself again and refocus and recommit and work through whatever challenge you're going through. So my advice is just, you will have doubts about yourself along the way, because it's not an easy job. But if you surround yourself with people that you can develop that trust and have your best interest, they'll keep you going.
That's great advice. And Silvia, you've obviously had a vast array of experiences in your field, both positive and negative, but I think that opens up a great learning opportunity for young women like Malika and I, and like anybody who is watching this, to just learn from what you've been through. And if you have any more advice for how young women can work to combat discrimination and have a more productive experience in a male-dominated environment, then if you could share that, that would be wonderful.
Sure. The first thing and foremost is, you know, preparation. Make sure that you always are prepared for that opportunity. There will be a lot of opportunities. That's number one. Be ready. And don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to fail. The other thing that is important is to find those, like I said, those mentors around you. Build the relationships, build a network for yourself. I've been very fortunate that even though we're not that many women in the industry, I've had the opportunity to build very long and very strong relationships with women in tech. And we help each other and encourage each other. In terms of discrimination, I think always know how you're contributing to the conversation and to the business, and make your case based on that versus I'm a woman, or or a minority, or whatever different you are. Know deep inside of you that you bring something unique that is of value, and make sure that you're getting also credit for it. And that means one of the things that we women tend to do is shy away from accepting recognition and claiming recognition. And in my career, I've had to step up and say, I've been looking at the work that I've contributed, and I'm comparing it to what my peer group, and I don't say men, I say my peer group, are contributing, and I see that I'm not being recognized equally. And this is what I think, I've contributed, and and I'd like to get that recognition because I am contributing at the same level. And if I'm not, and if I have some gaps, please give me feedback. Always asking for feedback is important also.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, just in the past 25 minutes, I've learned so much about how I should deal with some of these challenges as I move forward in life and in my career. But before we wrap up our conversation, we just have a few quick, fun questions.
Sure.
And so I will get started. Cake or cookies?
Cake anytime. Chocolate cake.
Yes, I love chocolate cake, so I completely agree. Okay, next question. What is your favorite color?
Pink. I don't shy away from it. I'm a girl.
Yeah, I mean, you can see both Malika and so if you could travel anywhere in the world for free, where would you go?
Wow, I've been to a lot of places already. So to be honest, right now, after a year of being home, I just want to go back home. And home for me is Brownsville, Texas. I'm Mexican American. So down in the border, and go to Padre Island. So that's I guess the hot spot for college kids nowadays. But when I was growing up, there was no hotels. It was the most beautiful, clean beach ever. That's where I would like to
go. Okay, great. And then the last question, what superpower would you want to have?
Superpower. I think gets my whole house clean and no intervention from me, so I can focus on everything else.
I think my parents would definitely agree with that one.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, part of the challenge is the balancing of your personal life with everything else that we want to do as individuals, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely think that in and of itself could be a great superpower, being able to balance everything perfectly in life. I would definitely sign myself up for that superpower. But those were all of the questions that we had for you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, Silvia. We learned so much just in the half an hour that you took to talk to us, so thank you again. And we are so excited for everyone to hear about your journey.
Well, thank you for letting me share my story.
Of course. Thank you so much for the time.
You're welcome. And best of luck with you ladies. And if you ever want to talk later on, I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you.